from all walks of life that give all of us the examples of where you can start from this part of your life. You can start in this part of the world. You can start with these limitations. And here's what eventually you can become. That host of testimonials not only gives us the ability to see and imagine that it's possible, but finally to believe that if we took those steps, that if we learned those lessons, that if we developed those skills, that if we used our imagination and our faith, that the same thing that's happened to all of these others whose testimonials we hear, the same thing can happen for you. So that's the power you have, the ability to see, the ability to hear, the ability to comprehend and understand. That's powerful. The ability to believe that it's possible, the ability to evaluate it, what it might mean for you. We hear a testimonial and we say, yes, but how would that apply to me? We have the ability to evaluate that so that we could start right where we are with our own limitations of capital, our limitations of time, perhaps in the beginning when you have to start part-time. But you can do that. You have the power and the ability to do that. You have the ability to see. What a power that is, to see things, to be able to use your mind, to comprehend, to see, to perceive. You have the ability to hear, to listen. The old phrase says that it's the listening that creates the faith. It's the listening that stimulates the imagination, that can see things that don't yet exist. It's the ability to hear testimonials and formulate in your own mind the possibilities of starting from nothing and developing something, starting, deep in the hole and working your way out and finally becoming successful. The ability to hear those testimonials, to hear good ideas. That now creates imagination. Imagination then has the ability to turn to faith. Faith is the ability not only to be able to perceive it and to see it, but the ability to believe that it's possible, that it can happen. If we can start, you can start. If we can believe, you can believe. If we can try, you can try. And if we can try again, you can try again. If you can keep trying until finally it gets easier, finally the skills start to develop, if any of us can do it, you can do it. You have the ability to develop these disciplines that create value in your life. The disciplines, learning how to sell, learning how to get customers, learning how to build that customer base, the skills of learning how to recruit. You can learn to do that. You have the power to do that. Learning how to serve your organization well, learning how to communicate, learning how to organize the people that you put together, learning how to keep in touch. All of that is within your personal power. And just think about it a little more now than you have maybe in the past. There's no reason why you can't have all of the business you want, all of the success you want. There's no reason why you cannot dramatically, this year especially, affect your own life. And by that, affect the lives of the people that you want to touch in the years to come. Each person's income is determined primarily by their philosophy, not by the economy. Once I understood that, then I said, well, I don't have to go to work on the economy. And the answer was no. You only have to go to work on yourself to make yourself more valuable. So now here's 5 things I want to share with you. And the first one is your personal philosophy. What could get you more prepared and ready for cashing in on the opportunity of the 21st century? And here's the first one, personal philosophy. Your personal philosophy is like a guidance system that helps you make decisions what to do, what not to do. From the information you get and what you learn and what you know, we decide. Maybe your philosophy would have been 5 years ago never to attend seminars like this. You just didn't go. Now 5 years later, here you are. Something happened along the way to change your mindset, saying, hey, for the money and the time, if I just get one good idea and walk away, it certainly is worth the money and the time. So now that little amendment in your philosophy, you now say, I'm going to regularly go, because it doesn't take but a few ideas to make a great difference in your income, personal life, social life, and all the rest. So now you know that's valuable. a change of mind, a change of idea. So that's what personal philosophy is all about. The more we learn, the more we know, the better we're able to make better decisions about two major things. Your philosophical guidance system does two things. For your notes, number one, helps you to see the dangers on one side, so you can avoid those. But here's what else your guidance system does. Personal philosophy helps you to see the opportunities on the other side, so that you can expand those, maximize those. And here's what that's called. The game of life is to minimize the dangers and maximize the opportunities. And the more we know and the more we learn, the more experience we gather in sessions like this, from the sermon on Sunday morning to the books we read and all the rest, helps us to keep continually adjusting our philosophical guidance system so that we minimize more dangers, maximize more opportunities. That's really the game of life. I couldn't put it much more simply. So number one, we're affected by what we know. Now, how do we know more things and learn more things that'll help us readjust our thinking so we can avoid the dangers, maximize the opportunities? Here's number one, learn from personal experience. One way to learn to do something right is what? First do it wrong, right? Mess up, and then you say, wow, that was costly. I'm never going to do that again. So one way to learn to do it right, first do it wrong. Sometimes a negative experience turns out finally to be positive. They say if you survive your first heart attack, you may now live to be a very old person. Why is that? Well, that first heart attack, if you survived it, is called a wake-up call. And maybe the doctor said, one more of these and you're history. And you said, wow. And you make it for the health food store. And you start reading every book you can find on good nutrition, how to avoid another one of these heart attacks. And you start jogging and start walking and doing all of the stuff. And this total change of lifestyle could now save your life and cause you to live to be a very old person. Here's what my mentor said, that's some of the best advice I ever got. He said, Mr. Rohn, if you will change, everything will change for you. If you'll start making personal changes, your income will change, your health will change, your future will change, everything will change, if you're willing to start making the changes. So sometimes a negative experience now causes us to really make a sudden shift in our philosophical guidance system that says, hey, I'm never going to let this happen to me again. Fantastic. Now, here's the next way to learn, and that is to learn from other people's experiences, whether they are negative or positive. It's too bad failures don't give seminars like this. Wouldn't that be good information? Now, we don't want to pay them, so they don't lecture, but their information would be valuable. If you know a guy that's messed up his life for 40 years, you have to say, John, would you spend a day with me? And I will bring my notebook and take good notes. A good-looking guy like you, beautiful family, every reason to do well, threw it all away. Teach me how for the last 40 years you messed it all up. And he tells you, and you take good notes. Learning from the negative side of someone's experience. So, learn number one from your own experiences, learn number two from other people's experiences. If you want to live a dynamic life, multiplying your income, multiplying your future, be a good student. If a good idea comes your way, write it down, then ponder it, then perhaps go do it. Okay. Now, your philosophy comes from what you learn, comes from what you know, comes from other people's experiences. 3 ways now to learn from other people. Here's number one, learn from what you see. One of the great watchwords of these early years of the 21st century, pay attention. If you just watch, you can pick up clues. Success leaves clues. And if you'll be a better observer of the winners and the losers, those that are doing well and those that are falling behind, and just take mental notes and good notes and say, I'm going to adjust what I'm doing
based on what I see. Here's number 2. We learn so much from other people based on what we hear. Here's good advice on that. Be a selective listener. Listen to voices of value that have experience, ideas, reputation, something valuable to share. Now here's number 3. Read all the books. Now there's millions of books, so you can't read all the books. But make this note. Read all the books you need to read to make you as wealthy as you want to be, as healthy as you want to be, as prosperous, as productive, as unique a human being as you want to be. Read all of those books. Don't leave those books go unread.
Mr. Schoaf got me started on my library. I've got one of the better libraries. Haven't read everything in it, but I feel smarter just walking in it. My library. At least I was smart enough to buy it. Now I got to be smart enough to read it. Then, of course, I got to be smart enough to decide what's valuable and then do it. But this one is very important. Become a good reader. Some books that helped change my life. Mr. Schoaf recommended, of course, the Bible. And my parents made sure I was a pretty good scholar by the time I was 18. That's been so beneficial for me, drawing from those illustrations, reading about those stories, people who made it and people who didn't make it, and what the difference was. And then other books that helped to really change my life. One called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And then a book that helped me become financially independent by the time I was 31. And that book is called The Richest Man in Babylon. But I started reading the books, attending the classes, making sure that I got in front of people that had something good to say. And then I started keeping a journal. One of the major things my teacher taught me was to keep a journal. He said, don't trust your memory. If you hear something good, just make a little note and write it down. Now, at first I took, notes on pieces of paper and torn off corners and backs of old envelopes. And it didn't serve me well, thrown in a drawer. Then I learned to keep a journal, a bound copy of all my notes. So I would suggest you do the same. Things that impress you, a poem that impresses you. When you attend a class, some of the ideas that impressed you, jot them down. You read something in a magazine, right? Some ideas, take those out, put them in your journal. Keep a good journal the rest of your life. This will serve you well. My journals make up a significant portion of my own library. And if you saw my library and saw my journals, I tell you what you'd have to say. This is the library, and these are the journals of a very serious student. No wonder Mr. Rohn is invited to lecture and speak on his experiences around the world. So I want the same thing to happen to you. Value captured that you can resort to later, go back over it and review it, and let it become valuable to you. Work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Develop the skills, learn the lessons, take the classes, absorb all that is being taught to you these days. And then later on, of course, you can sort it out, what's valuable to you and how to refine it for your business and for your life and for your future. But the main thing is to get it and start this process of personal change, personal development. And let me say it one more time. If you will change, everything will change for you. You'll never be the same. You'll keep growing. As you look back on a few months, look back on a few years, you won't believe the progress you can make economically, your relationship with your family, your friends, and whether you're in sports or economics or whatever. I'm telling you, that whole process of committing yourself for personal change, personal value, can really make your life unique and worthwhile.
Now, jot this down. When you do read, you have to sort through what you read and decide which is valuable to try. That's part of the process of learning. Gathering information and sorting through it. One, the information that would apply to you, and what you think would be valuable based on your current philosophical opinion. So read all the books. Our lives are greatly affected by what we learn and what we know.
Then here's another one. You have the ability and the power to decide. Decision-making can be the beginning of a new growth period for you, not only personally, but a growth period for your business, your skill levels, your ability to reach out and touch other people, the ability to decide. What a long list of personal power you have, that I have, that all of us have. We just need to be reminded. Now here's another one. And that's the ability to act, the ability to put into action what you see, what you comprehend, what you imagine, what you believe, and then what you have faith for. That ability to act is unprecedented in creating the miracle. Because it's not imagination that creates a career. It's not imagination that creates a business. It's not imagination that creates a customer base. It's using your imagination and finally putting it to work. But you have the ability to do that. If you have to get started with limited time, you just make the limited time pay. You know, before you go to work, during your lunch hour, in the evenings, on the weekends, little pieces of time that you find something to do that will start your career, keep it going, and keep the momentum high. Your ability to act can develop all of the disciplines, because you cannot learn the disciplines unless you actually do the work, unless you actually do the action. It's like learning to communicate. Way back in those early days, I had a tough time. You know, I described it one time, my first meeting, I stood up, my mind sat back down, left me standing there. I opened my mouth and nothing came out. My knees are banging together. The sweat's pouring off my face. I'm scared. It's called terror, right? Those first few times. But sure enough, I did it again. I worked up the courage to do it the third time and the fourth time. And that was about 35, 36 years ago. I'm glad you were not in on my first presentation. And now, much more confidence all these years later, because I have acted on practicing my skills to communicate. But you've got the ability to do that. You've got the power and the ability to create a career that will serve you well for whatever time you want to spend in developing this career. You have the ability to develop an enterprise, a business, to be in business for yourself. Learn to work harder on yourself than you do on your job. That's the simple philosophy that changed my life forever, starting age 25. If you work hard on your job, you can make a living, which is fine. If you work hard on yourself, you can make a fortune, which is super fine. Everything changed for me when I understood this philosophy. I didn't mind working hard on my job, but things didn't seem to change that much. Then I started working hard on myself to qualify. So let me put it in a philosophical phrase now. This is worth the price of whatever it costs for you to be here today. Here it is. Success is something you attract by becoming an attractive person. Success is not something you pursue. It's something you attract by becoming attractive. Here's what we teach in leadership. To attract attractive people, you must be attractive. I kept hoping that everything else would change around me, found out that if I went to work on myself, worked on my skills, worked on my language, if I became better than I was each year, if I grew in skills and language and vocabulary and competence, then I would become attractive to the marketplace.